Stormy Daniels is speaking out for the first time since Trump became a convicted felon. And obviously, she is the adult film actress who he had an affair with that led to him trying to cover that up during the presidential campaign in a way that jurors found to be a violation of the law, with the falsification of business records to cover up the fact that he was defrauding the American public. And she's now responding to that news. And this clip that I have for you is super interesting. The outlet that she conducted the interview with is The Mirror. And just to give you reporting, then I'll play the clip for you. Stormy Daniels breaks silence on Donald Trump's guilty verdict and says, "Jail him now." Speaking for the first time since the former president was found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records, the former adult actress has opened up to The Mirror about her experience in a world exclusive. Stormy Daniels has dramatically broken her silence on convicted ex-president Donald Trump. It's still crazy to read that. Convicted felon Donald Trump was an accurate description of the presumptive nominee for president of the United States for one of the two major parties in the United States, demanding jail him now. That's right. Speaking for the first time, and then it goes on to give more context, but let's just jump right in to this clip.
I don't think Trump understands anything. Like he's lost complete and utter touch with reality. I mean, I don't think, and you're right, financially, it's like when you have a child and sometimes taking the electronics away work, but if your child is very artistic, they don't care. They'll just go color in their coloring books. And then you have another child that, they don't want to go outside. You got to ground them, or like take away electronics, or like don't let them have desserts. You're absolutely right. You have to find the punishment that not just matches the crime and is fair and just, but that impacts that particular person.
I'm going to really quickly pause your viewing of this video to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. In the videos yesterday, I had recorded and we put in all the videos, me thanking you all for getting us across 500,000 subscribers. Absolutely incredible. We're going to pass today 510,000 subscribers. What? If you haven't yet subscribed, click it. Thank you all so much.
What have the threats been like then? I know you've had death threats.
Yeah, I mean...
Is it every day?
Every day, nonstop. And that's the thing, is there's no like median, there's no middle ground, there's no like person who doesn't have an extremely strong opinion.
And here, if I'm not mistaken, she's responding to, I know the question was hard to hear, the death threats that she's getting constantly.
In either way. I understand that most of them are just people running their mouth, but the point is that it's so, like, how do you get this and this to ever come together? And a lot of that I blame Donald Trump. He has divided this country and people, this world, in ways that I just didn't think was possible.
Yeah, and really fascinating to hear from her. Now, we didn't hear in that set of clips, but apparently, reportedly, to this outlet, she did say, "Jail Trump now." And I think my criticism of what she's saying is, you understand her perspective, saying he's not going to learn, he's not going to be held accountable unless you really punish him. But I think we need to be very clear, as we are with the respect for the outcome of the trial, that the outcome of the sentencing should be whatever is fair and just based on the judge's understanding of the law and other similar cases. And wherever that leads, I think we should respect based on what the judge decides, just like how we're asking Republicans to respect the verdict and respect the process that has played out. Trump had his day in court. He got his due process. He had his jury of his peers. And the fact that they're abandoning their dedication to the rule of law because of Trump now experiencing the negative side of that is exactly what we're criticizing. So us then saying, just sort of for the sake of it, make sure it's a jail sentence and not necessarily home confinement or probation. I don't think that's necessary. Let's just let the process play out as we've been doing. But you also sympathize with, he's not going to change his behavior and understand the importance of abiding by the law unless he's really punished. But across all the cases, I think he's eventually going to be very much punished. And for our political conversation, the way that we hold accountable Donald Trump in the most meaningful way for the outcome of this country is voting him out, making sure he doesn't get close to the White House. But we'll see how all the cases turn out. And I think the sentences he would get post-conviction in the other three would be bad for him. I'll say for sure, fair, but bad for him. And then also she spoke to the way that Trump has divided America like we rarely have seen throughout our history. And that's absolutely something I contemplate a lot. Obviously, he didn't create people's feelings and values and create the hatred, but gave permission for some of it to come out like we haven't seen before. And I think the impact of Trump will be, of course, giving permission to people to sort of abandon their dedication, like I said, to the rule of law, to our democratic principles, but also he's been what a sort of bubble was constructed around. But he can then exit that bubble and no longer be politically relevant. But the bubble and the mechanisms that have allowed for his narratives to prevail in right-wing media and among MAGA voters, that will still remain as something I've talked about before. And so what frightens me is, of course, this current moment, the division, the abandonment of a dedication to democracy by MAGA. And there is a clear ending to that, though, if we win in November, right? Then Trump most likely will not try to run again. And at least the threat of Trump when it comes to our democracy has been avoided. But then beyond that, it's frightening to know that the incentive structures within, for example, the right-wing media echo chamber, those are the same. So they will still need to justify their own prominence to exacerbate those very same feelings and to stoke that division and that hatred. And in a sense, we all have a part to play in trying to unite the country more. But I think doing false equivalencies in what is causing this current particularly tense moment is not the way that we get past it. I've said it before, but we need meaningful unity through a common dedication to fundamental principles. So we do have to reject this type of fact-free personality cult and anti-democratic ideology. Super important. And then convince and inform enough people to unite around the common principles that we do share. But it can't be those principles, for sure. But again, I do think the vast majority of Americans, if they understood the facts of Trump versus Biden, would be able to unite around those common principles. But definitely Trump will leave the legacy of so many horrible things, and one of them just being a divider in chief. And Stormy Daniels is correct on that. Here's Eric Swalwell, as all of this sort of is happening in front of the backdrop of the lies that we're hearing about the outcome of Trump's case, it being a witch hunt, it being rigged. And Eric Swalwell had a couple of interesting moments on MSNBC.
But to attack the verdict is not an attack on Bragg. It's not an attack on the DOJ. It's not an attack on the prosecutors who tried the case or an attack on the judge who presided over it. It's an attack on 12 jurors. And so why don't you just come out and say what you really want to say, which is that those jurors, in your minds, are liars and they're fraudsters. But they won't say that, so they're going to attack everyone else, because the truth is, these were Donald Trump's neighbors. He chose to live in New York City. He committed his crimes in New York City, and his neighbors in New York City said you're a fraud.
Right. So they can't seem to get their head around every time they act like it's a part of the conspiracy that Trump was tried in New York City, that you're tried where the crimes were committed. So he committed these crimes in New York City. I was about to say allegedly, but it's no longer alleged. And that's a really important thing to clarify. Here's another moment.
The hypocrisy of these guys, right? Like, we back the blue, we back the blue. Well, then the blue go and issue a search warrant on their guy, and all of a sudden they want to defund the police, right? Mm-hmm. They say they're all for states' rights, and then, they get a court that overturns Roe v. Wade, and now they want a federal abortion ban. And then they say that courts should be independent and respected. But by the way, if we need to, we can back channel to them. It's not about the Constitution. It's just about serving Trump.
But I want...
Yeah. And I'll try not to get into the whole rant again, but nothing bothers me more. Maybe there's something. But one of the things that bothers me a lot is knowing that for so long we were engaging in good faith, trying to operate under the assumption that people actually believed they held a particular principle. So then we would say, okay, because you hold that, let me then argue with you on those grounds. But now we're learning, oh, they don't actually hold these principles. It was just sort of rhetorically effective to say, but isn't representative of their actual values. And that's unfortunate. Here's Hakeem Jeffries also pushing back against the Trump trial lies.
I want to start by asking you about this historic verdict. President Biden opened his remarks on Friday saying it is irresponsible for anyone to say the verdict was rigged just because they do not like it. This crime was more than 8 years old. There are questions about the validity of the legal theory, untested legal theory that was used to prosecute it. Would this case have been brought against anyone other than former President Trump?
Yes, of course. This verdict in the case of People v. Trump was a validation of the American judicial system. Donald Trump was entitled to the presumption of innocence. He received it. Donald Trump was entitled to a trial by a jury of his peers. He received it. Donald Trump was entitled to a vigorous defense. He received it. 12 jurors, 12 American citizens, after 5 weeks of a trial, evaluated the facts, the evidence, and the law, and came to a unanimous decision as it relates to convicting Donald Trump on 34 felony counts. That is an affirmation of the American judicial system.
Yeah, absolutely correct there. Let me know what you thought of Stormy Daniels speaking out now in the comments.